Conversation today is related to a series that we've been participating in, and it's the Community of Practice Transition to Employment series. I work at the Center for Excellence in Disabilities as the Grants and Partnership Development Officer. My name's Mandy Filippelli, and my colleagues, Courtney Lanham, who's the training specialist at the CED, and Jennifer Tenney, who's the principal investigator and program manager at the CED, have been assisting me all this year conducting these communities of practice. So we started meeting in February and we've had a lot of conversations. And today the goal is to wrap up those topics, share with people that haven't been part of the conversation to highlight the conversations we've had and the presentations we've had, and then to gather information from you all, whether you're an individual with a disability, you're supporting somebody who has a disability, maybe you're an employer that's looking to hire people, or you're an agency that supports, or maybe you're just interested in the conversation. Our goal is to complete these surveys and put the data together to make some decisions about where West Virginia should go as far as direction is concerned for expanding opportunities for individuals with disabilities to find meaningful employment. Is it through college? Is it through apprenticeships? Is it through direct hire? How are we reaching individuals, supporting them, and making sure that you're successful for a long time in a job that makes you happy? So no better way to do that than getting feedback from people across the state. At the Center for Excellence in Disabilities, we are part of WVU and the Health Sciences Center. This gives us a chance to partner with schools of nursing, pharmacy, all sorts of disciplines that allow us to reach individuals in the community and provide supports. There are CEDs everywhere across the country. Every state has one. They're typically, they're housed at one of the universities in the state, but they do serve the entire state. So you can see the icons are where the locations exist, but each WVUCED does serve the entire state that it's part of. So here we are in Morgantown and Big Chimney primarily, but we serve the whole state of West Virginia. The Center for Excellence in Disabilities does a bunch of different things. We have some primary roles, and those are to provide education and training, to provide technical assistance, direct services, to disseminate information, and to provide research activities across the state. And these communities of practice are doing several of those things because we're participating in trainings, we're putting that information together, and we're hoping to use that information to move forward and build programs that serve our state in the best way. A little bit more about our CED here in West Virginia. Again, I mentioned our main offices are in Mon County here in Morgantown and down in Big Chimney, Kanawha County. But we do have offices in every county that's listed, that's highlighted in blue. And again, we do cover every single county. A lot of our staff are traveling. You may see us in a satellite office, such as the Division of Rehab Services or within the DHHR. So you never know where you might find a CED staff out in the community. And we have, excuse me, I got to move my screen here. We have 7 programs, and that does change from time to time, 4 clinics, and about 90 staff working, as well as our state and federal partners across our programs. You can become an affiliate of the CED, and you can become an affiliate as an individual or as an agency where you're able to keep up with the updates at the center and just be more closely in tune with what's going on, our programs and initiatives, newsletters, and things like that. So the meetings that we've been having since February, and I see a lot of familiar faces, but I also see a lot of new faces. So I'm excited that we're going to get to share this information with a broader audience. And we do have some of our veteran experts with us too. So what have we been doing since February? We were funded by the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council to engage in what's called a Community of Practice series. And this is when a group of people come together to discuss a concern that has been ongoing. And for us, this concern is there aren't enough jobs or opportunities for individuals with disabilities, specifically with intellectual or developmental, but across the range, opportunities for these individuals to find and keep meaningful employment. And how can we increase that? So that's our common problem. And the way that you build a community of practice is you have conversations, which we've been doing each month since February. We have a shared domain of interest, which is increase in employment options. And we have a shared practice of experience and tools what have we done before? That's what we talk about. This worked for me. This was a program that existed in the 90s and I thought it was great. What do we need to bring back to enhance our services and make sure that we're on the cutting edge and we're doing everything we can to help people get the jobs that they want to be working in? So just a brief look, and if we finish up early, I won't complain, and I'm sure you won't, but we do have a lot of material to cover. And our goals today are just to review the information of what a community of practice is and what our goals were together, to review the presentations and topics that were presented since February, because we had a lot of great content, and then to wrap up through the use of some surveys to get information from you all that I can then put together and I'll send out to all of you, as well as the people, everyone who's participated since February, as well as the Developmental Disabilities Council, because they want to know what information did we get out of our meetings together and what can we do moving forward. And so that's what we're tasked with. This is just a quick spotlight of the presentations that we've had. You don't need to soak it in too much because I'm going to go over each one and just kind of highlight what we learned from our presenters. And some of those presenters are here with us today. So that's always nice to have some continuity. Okay, really quickly, we're going to take a moment to do a poll. And this should look familiar to you if you've been with us before. Take a minute to look at this map. I apologize that the counties aren't listed. Try your best to find your county. We're checking your West Virginia County trivia here. And we'll go ahead and put a poll up and you can tell me which area you're from. Oh, give me 1 second, guys. I appreciate you putting it in the chat there, but I've got a poll for you. So you should see that pop up. And there we go. People are going. Oh, look at you guys are fast. I'll give it about 30 seconds to let everybody respond. And then I have some results about who we've had on our calls since February. Are we missing any regions? Is there any part of the state that we need to get to be part of our conversation? You guys are doing great. I've got 35 out of 53 people responded and they keep coming in. 41. Oh, we'll keep going. You guys are still answering. I'll give it about 20 more seconds. That's a full minute of responses. And you guys are all paying attention. And if you're from out of state, go ahead and put it in the chat. And we've got some people that do several areas or statewide, of course. Yep, we know that old. All right, so that's 1 minute. We got almost all of you, 86% participating. End poll. Let's see who we have. So if you guys can see those results, we have a strong presence of New River, Greenbrier Valley. Way to go, guys. And then usually our highest numbers are coming from Mountaineer Country, and that shows today. But we have everybody. That's awesome. This is the first time we've had every region represented. So I'll call that a success. And let me clear that out of here. And then I'll show you who we've had represented since February at our meetings. On our next slide. Okay. So this is just a quick look because it's important to know, if we're trying to reach statewide, if we're getting everybody to the table. And so this is just a quick grid of everyone that we've had for the last 10 months since February with our presentations, and just the occurrence of which regions have really shown up for a lot of these discussions. And so we had a really strong presence in Mountaineer Country each month. And then some of our higher presence were Metro Valley and Mid-Ohio Valley, followed by Hatfield-McCoy Mountain Region, New River, Greenbrier Valley. Our other out of state, a lot of our guest speakers were from out of state. And then we have some of our smaller pockets, and I was excited to see Mountain Lakes here today. I also think that's a tricky part of the map. Maybe people didn't know which counties those were there in the dead center of the state. And we got Wyoming County there too. Thanks for sharing that. So that's who we've had as part of our discussions. I think we've done a good job of getting statewide representation. We could have some heavier participation in some regions, but that's how we keep these conversations going and we build on it. And then I wanted to show you all the breakdown of who's been coming to talk about increasing employment opportunities. And we have a lot of agencies registered, and a lot of us here today are agencies, representing agencies. And I always like to remind everybody that if you're an agency, you're also an employer. So we can also be implementing these strategies that we are suggesting to other industries. Employer base, we have only had 14 registered that identify as representing an employer. Well, that's all right, Diana Denton. We won't judge you for getting the wrong region. Hatfield McCoy region. I'd like to see more employers joining these conversations. And if you're with an agency, I'm sure you have the same desire, but we would like to see that number increase, because if we don't know what employers want or need, then it's really hard to serve them and make sure the right job seekers are reaching out to that employer and that you're providing the right supports. So I'd love to see this number grow in conversations. And then we've had a small number of individuals and other, I don't know the other that could fall into any of the categories, but 186 people registered for the Community of Practice series, which I think were really great numbers. And from month to month, we had varied turnouts, and some conversations were more enthusiastic than others, but there was a lot of information sharing that happened over the last year. And today we had 96 people registered, and it was really a wide range across individuals with disabilities being represented. I think we got out of them some different listservs. And so if you're an individual that's coming from an agency, an individual with a disability that's looking to help with this conversation, we really appreciate you joining. We also are looking to expand the employers that come talk with us. So just a quick look at who's been part of the conversation. Okay, so what I'm going to go into next are reviewing some of our topics. And that's what we're going to spend the majority of our time doing. So a quick recap before we go into the specific topics. Each month, we invited someone from across the country to speak with us about either higher education, vocational education, preparing employers, or preparing employees. And we asked these experts from across the country to come share with us their best practices and what's been working for them. And then we look and we reflect, are we doing these things in West Virginia? If not, can we do these things in West Virginia? Does it make sense? If we are doing them, are they working? Are we having good outcomes? Are people getting jobs? Are people keeping their jobs? And are employers having their needs met as well? So our first topic was higher education, and we had 3 months of speakers that I'm going to highlight. And then we're going to take a short survey about our thoughts and opinions and what we know about higher education and individuals with disabilities and their ability to access and complete those programs. And then we'll talk about vocational education, take a short survey, and then we'll have a final topic followed by a survey. And so I'll put all those answers together, and they should give us a nice, clear picture of where we think we should expand programming in West Virginia and where funding agencies should be putting their efforts and their money, and how we can reach people across West Virginia, whether it's agencies, individuals, schools, employers. What do people listen to? Is it a brochure? Is it a video? Because if we're sending out the wrong information and people aren't picking it up, then we're not serving the community as well as we could. So dissemination and outreach is very important. So those are our goals in a nutshell. It's a bit ambitious, but I believe in you all. Please stop me. You guys have been doing a good job of using the chat feature. In the chat feature, you're able to message me directly or another participant, or you're also able to message the entire group. So if you have something that you'd love to share, please don't hesitate. It's me talking a lot, but we really are here to share and get this information out to the rest of the state. So if you were with us for these sessions, it'll be a bit of a review. And if you're new to the group, I hope you take away something valuable from these presentations. Our first higher education topic was Think College, and Dr. Meg Griggle came to talk with us about her organization. It's a national organization that brings together comprehensive transition programs. These are higher education programs for individuals with disabilities, inclusive programs on college campus. And our next two presenters will focus a little more closely on what these on-campus programs look like. So Dr. Griggle offers support to colleges that are providing inclusive programs. So this is individuals with disabilities. Maybe they're not going to college based on the typical testing and application materials, but this is an inclusive program that's on campus. Maybe you're living in the dorms, you're working on a certificate program. And so an inclusive setting where an individual that typically may not get to attend college is able to have that experience. Dr. Griggle comes from a background in special education and a strong background in publication and research. So she was a really great presenter to kick off our series with because of her just wisdom and knowledge on supporting individuals with disabilities in post-secondary education or college. After we talked with Dr. Griggle, we went into breakout sessions and we answered some questions about the current state of higher education, post-secondary education in West Virginia. And so the next slide is going to highlight the conversation that we had. So the first box there kind of highlights what Dr. Griggle talked about, which were the CTP programs. And we do have, it's called WVU Country Roads, housed here in Morgantown. I am the occupational skills instructor for WVU Country Roads. And we've just applied to be approved as a comprehensive transition post-secondary program, which means students will be able to apply for FAFSA funding to attend WVU Country Roads, which is a 2-year soft skills certificate program on campus, living in the dorms in Morgantown. So we're already moving in the direction of Dr. Griggle's advisement in hoping to get approved as a CTP here in West Virginia. Dr. Griggle also focused strongly on the importance of work experiences and work experiences that start from an early age, high school, even middle school job shadowing. And Dr. Griggle also focused on the importance of long-term supports for employers. Philip asked a question, is Country Roads for all? Country Roads has eligibility criteria, and we can drop that link in the chat once I'm not sharing my screen. Essentially, the eligibility is 18 to 24, and there's some other just life skills criteria and independent living criteria necessary for entrance into that program. And there'll actually be an open house coming up in the next month or so for that Country Roads program. So if you want to keep an eye on the CED website, you could join that, and we'll be doing a couple hours of Q&A with agencies and individuals. Good question. And so the point of looking at these kind of breakdowns for each presentation is we'd like to kind of wrap our heads around what are the things that we saw most often. So as we're going through here, if you're hearing the same thing come up time and again, throw it in the chat and say, it sounds like we need to work on blank. Because that's how we bottleneck this information, because we had 10 presentations, a lot of information, I think 13 presenters total. So we have to get to the bottom of what do we want to move forward with as a state? What do we think we can do most successfully looking at models across the country? Thank you, Jen. Yeah. Oh, Jen, can you do that again and send it to everyone? I can't copy from there. That dang chat. Okay, so then we talked each month about who do we know across the state that's already doing this and they're doing it well, and we called them our champions. And this is a little biased because if we didn't have a region represented in our audience, then we couldn't have highlighted them. So these will be a little bit focused on whoever was represented in the call, but we want to know who's doing stuff right in the state, and we want to look at them, and we want to look at them as models and say, well, how can we do that? Or how can we partner with them to take advantage of what they're doing? So when we were talking about higher education and people completing programs and finding employment, the champions that were mentioned in our February call were Bridge Valley down in Charleston, Division of Rehabilitation Services. And for instance, I'll give you guys a hint. You'll see DRS mentioned as a champion several times. So that should lead you to believe, all right, DRS is doing something right, and let's stick with them and see what else we can do. You'll also see some gaps where DRS had things in the past that we wish would come back. So maybe if we put out these reports, hopefully we can start to direct public policy and the way funding is directed depending on who, who participates in our calls and who hears what the needs are. We would hope that that public policy maybe would change and those monies would be directed towards where we most want them in the state. Big ideas there. We also were noted at Toyota as an expert. If you're not familiar with Toyota down in Southern West Virginia and their plant down there, they have some really cool stuff going. They've had some opportunities for agencies to come in and kind of build some kind of team approach work where they're bringing individuals in with disabilities and helping to train them and getting certificates. So keep an eye on Toyota if you haven't checked them out. Fairmont State University was mentioned as a champion along with Pierpont there in the same area. They've got a lot of certificate programs that can fast track you to success. WVU Medicine and WVU Parkersburg were also listed as our champions. So if you're paying attention, if you're taking notes, start to notice where we see things repeated from one month to the next. And I think that's going to be the theme of next steps and what we want to try to work on next. We talked about needs across the state being a focus for life skills. We need more open-minded employers. We need stronger support system. We need to find a way to involve the justice system kids. They're getting left behind often. You got the kids, you've got Mountaineer Challenge, you've got Rubenstein down in Tucker County, you've got facilities all over the state. And you wonder, obviously there's going to be kids in there that have special needs, and are they getting the same work experiences and access as kids in the public school system coming out? I don't know. And then finally, reaching the couch surfers. If you work with the population of transition age, sometimes you leave school and instead of going to work, you go to the couch. And how do we get those people back engaged? Because they're probably bored and they want something to do. But if nobody's reaching out to them, then they're also falling behind. So how do we reach that population that left school but didn't go into anything else? I talked about outreach and dissemination and trying to identify the best methods. And some of the ones identified in February were lunch and learns. So quick topics when people are already on site somewhere. Starting college visits throughout high school, having more college preparation. And just a reminder that we're still talking about higher ed in these first couple topics. Involving disability centers, having a single contact for supports so that people don't get overwhelmed and they don't know who's who in the myriad of transition supports, and educating schools on subsidy programs, having that blend of, a lot of times you're in the school system, you don't know what happens beyond those four walls. And so having those conversations early and connecting schools with agencies and programs and supports. I always like to ask, what did we have in the past that we'd like to bring back? Funding comes and goes, but we can always apply for new funding if something was successful and we want to bring it back. So some of the things that were mentioned were the College Foundation of West Virginia used to have FAFSA buses that would go around and students could get on the bus and they had internet and FAFSA there, forms there, and they could get assistance in completing that request for funding. We also miss specific funding from Division of Rehab Services for degrees and transportation and driver's training. So some specific things that we used to have that we'd like to see again. And then our last question for the group in February was, what can employers do to become more engaged? And they can engage in paid internships, trial work, employer relations, just communication is key. And this is my moment to make a quick reminder that all agencies are employers and that it's our duty to practice what we preach. And if we're asking other agencies and employers and businesses to engage in these activities, that we reflect on our own agencies and businesses and say, is this something that we would do? And if the answer is no, then you need to look at what you're asking for and maybe reset the bar. And if you're not able to do those own things, and maybe it's funding or privacy, but if you have the opportunity to offer an internship, apprenticeship, work site tour, anything within your own agency, I think it sets a really good example for the industries that we approach day after day. So that was our first one. All right, that was good timing. I think we'll get through all of these. That was our first wrap up from February, and we're going to move right into March because we continued our conversation on higher education. And the second month, like I said, we started to focus a little more on comprehensive transition programs that are available across the country, because we want to know how can we do this in West Virginia in the best way. And we can do that by looking at others that are already doing it really well. So we invited the University of Iowa REACH program to come talk to us in March. Mr. Lloyd came and spoke with us, and he has a large range of experience supporting individuals with disabilities. And his current program is one of those transition certificate programs, much like WVU Country Roads. And he comes from an urban Washington, D.C. area and is now running this program in Iowa. So I thought that Bill was especially interesting, his take on things, because he has that both urban and rural experience and just a range of opportunities over the years that he's engaged in supporting individuals in reaching self-sufficiency. So after we heard from Bill, we had a similar discussion as we did in February. And something that Bill talked to us about that we thought was especially interesting and useful for us in West Virginia down the road was the ability to leverage Medicaid dollars to pay for education. And so if you're familiar with waiver services, typically we're using those to purchase services such as job coaching, job placement, community participation, day rehabilitation, all sorts of things, not typically used to pay for college, but they're doing it in other states and they're doing it successfully. And so there's a precedent set for that leveraging of Medicaid dollars, and we'd like to be able to do that here in West Virginia as well for students that want to go into higher education. We also focused on Mr. Lloyd's expressed interest on keeping students connected and informed, and that's while engaging them in higher education. So not letting them kind of trail behind. That would be providing advisement on a regular basis, engaging with peer mentors, just keeping students, once they're on campus, keeping them engaged and motivated. He cautioned us that costs don't outweigh the outcomes. We all know that college can be very expensive, and especially if we're getting into, using federal and state funds to pay for it, we want to make sure that we're always offering something that's valuable and something that's going to be able to lead to meaningful employment. So he did caution that there are programs out there that offer a heavy price tag and not so much in return. He also mentioned the importance of the social options that come along with inclusivity and providing opportunities to engage in typical activities like going to college. And I think we all know this, someone's got to be supporting us. So if there's parents in the picture, parental buy-in, and not all transition, people in transition are having a support system with their family like that, but it is a lot easier to get things accomplished if everybody's on the same page. We had a pretty long list of champions, and just like I promised, DRS showed up more than once already, just in our second month. Modify is a program at the CED that supports foster youth in attending higher education. People mentioned Pell Grants and FAFSA as champions in getting individuals towards completion of higher education. And then nonprofit and government forgiveness programs. Maybe you get a job at a nonprofit moving forward and they help pay off your student loans. And then we mentioned, again, some champion employers that we know of. Of course, this is not comprehensive. It's indicative of who we had on the call and who they know. So you may have, I'm sure you have additional champions in the field that are hiring people coming out of higher education or helping pay for higher education when you're employed by them. And some of those that were mentioned were Ruby Hospital here in Morgantown. Taco Bell has some scholarship opportunities. Chick-fil-A, same, Sheets as well. Enterprise is really well known for bringing their employees up and opportunities for advancement. And there's a program through First Energy linemen that was mentioned. And then our other champions were colleges that use programs within to help students advance the Upward Bound program specifically. And West Virginia State, Tech, and Marshall were all mentioned as Upward Bound champions. Some of the things that we think we're lacking in are peer-to-peer buy-in. We could use that more to help us. So maybe that's a method of outreach that we'll see in the next one. Having presenters and mentors that are well-informed. being timely, and I think that means being early, starting the conversation about college very early, middle school, doing college campus tours, setting the expectation bar of, what writing skills do you need? What computer skills do you need if you expect to be successful in college? Again, we see that expanding Medicaid dollars, teaching skills early. I think we'll see that a couple times. Making sure that students aren't missing key information while they're in a pullout. And then what we're trying to do here, mirror programs that work. We're not looking to reinvent the wheel. We're looking to adjust the wheel to make it relevant in West Virginia. Our outreach methods were peer-to-peer, getting employer buy-in to help promote programs, flooding students and parents with resources, and talking with those who've been through it. And when we say that, that could be peer-to-peer, a student talking to another student, or that could be parents talking to parents, agencies talking to agencies, just again, getting people on the same page so that we can move forward and have success. Things that we miss were that expanded funding that DRS used to have for college and for transportation. We miss JTPA. If you've been in the business a while, that was the supported employment back in the late 80s, early 90s. And then people mentioned the governor's summer youth program as something that we really miss for helping individuals get into employment and gain skills. But we do have stuff like that still available, such as the WVU youth programs. So if you're not familiar with those, there are plenty of youth programs out there that are helping individuals get their foot in the door and gain work skills. And our last topic of discussion in March was, are there things out there to help employers? And we said, yeah, DRS is there to help. We said that Workforce West Virginia is there to help, especially through the provision of individual training accounts or ITAs that can help people pay for college. DRS has a Pathways to Success toolkit on their website that has a ton of resources available. If you've not checked that out before, I encourage you to do so. I already mentioned WVU youth programs. Every county in the state is covered by a workforce office, and they have a contracted youth provider that's helping students go to college, complete certificates, get their GED or their task, whatever stage of training and employment they're at, there's likely a service that can help them. And we mentioned WVUCED, and if you're not familiar with that, that's the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. And there's a lot of trainings out there that are available. This might be an incentive for an employer to hire someone with a disability because they're eligible for a tax credit here. And then there are bonding programs. You can find out about those more on the federal website or at your Workforce West Virginia. And private grants are also available for employers. So what are ways that we can help lift up our employers in our communities so that they're better able to perform and hire more people? Okay. And again, if you guys have any comments, please feel free to stop me. I'm just going to keep trucking through these. If you're taking notes, again, we're looking for common themes and things that we think will help us break barriers and move forward in individuals getting meaningful jobs. I'm going to move right along to April. Otherwise, in the month of April, we heard from another college program. We're still in higher education. This is our last higher education presentation. And then we're going to answer some questions through a survey about our thoughts and feelings about higher education in West Virginia. We'll take a break from these slides. So Syracuse University came to talk with us in April, the Tyshoff Center for Inclusion. And it's a similar program to Iowa's REACH program. And they brought a whole panel of individuals to talk with us. So I'll just highlight who came to talk with us real quick. Brianna is a student support assistant with the program. Kyle is a student with the Inclusive U program. Kevin is a residential mentor and a peer mentor with the program. Bud is the director of Inclusive U, and Sam is our student support coordinator. And so Inclusive U is similar to the Iowa REACH program, where individuals with disabilities, with developmental disabilities, are having an inclusive setting on campus. They're joining clubs. They're actually, I believe the Inclusive U program has some credits available for enrollment, along with the certificate that they offer. And the thing that they really focused on in their presentation was the need for peer mentors. And they have a whole system. Each of their students has, so let's say they've got 10 students and each student has 7 classes. They have 70 peer mentors to support that group. There's a peer mentor for every single class that that student goes to. So the first girl in the Brianna in the first slide, she's in charge of scheduling those peer mentors. And I can't imagine, that's definitely a full-time job organizing all of those peer mentors. But they really said that their program is successful because of those peer mentors. They also have been successful in those self-directed Medicaid dollars. So I was excited to hear that as a common theme. And I think we can achieve that in West Virginia. They also involve their peers in the training of new staff. So what better way to onboard people than to hear from people that have already done it. They think it's really important to follow up and have alumni groups, and it is, because if we don't know if these programs are working, what is the point? So it's important to follow up maybe 6 months, a year after the program, find out if those individuals are finding and keeping employment, find out how they're doing. Are they living independently with the skills they gained during the inclusive higher education program? Is their social life better because of having participated in the program? All that good stuff. And Bud also advised us that it's wise to use existing structural systems within the university. And I mentioned earlier that why reinvent the wheel if something exists? Let's just complement it so that it works the best for us. And so he reinforced that. Our champions of April were Kroger, Kmart, JN or the Job Accommodation Network, Division of Rehab Services made it 3 months in a row. The higher education offices, I'm guessing that's the Board of Higher Education, the Office of Accessibility, and Upward Bound, who we have heard as a champion in past months. What are our needs? Actually, the first one mentioned here, we'll focus in on our second group. The trades and construction representation was expressed. And it was nice to hear that because we were getting ready to move into vocational education. So it was nice to hear that people were wanting more of a presence of trades and construction industries available to individuals with disabilities. And we also need employers. We heard this before. We need more open-minded employers. That's kind of a restate here. Employers being open to updates and being progressive. We really need employers to buy in or we're not doing anything. What outreach did we feel works the best? We felt that partnering with social service agencies, and so that's schools and agencies communicating. We said it's really important for students, parents, and guidance counselors to talk early and frequently. Talk with other parents, have employers, approach employers that participate in Rotary and chamber groups because they're already have that team mentality and the want to partner. Make sure we have bona fide, credible clearinghouses where employers can share testimonials. So for instance, we'll have a speaker coming up in a couple months, Dale Vershagen, where he reported on Department of Labor's findings. So people hear that the Department of Labor put this information out, that legitimizes it. They're very well known. They're a federal agency that oversees the labor industry. And so we can feel very confident when we're sharing materials or testimonials that are coming from somewhere like the Department of Labor. They come with credence behind them. And if you guys have ever heard of disability program navigators, they were around in, I'm going to say like 2007, and they were housed at the workforce offices, and they were from the Center for, the staff were from the Center for Excellence in Disabilities, and they essentially were on site at the workforce offices to provide intense supports in the job search process. And I thought it was a great program. I don't know, does anyone remember that? I think that would be lovely to come back, but I'm pretty sure I said that one. All right, whew. We're gonna take a breather, guys. I'm gonna stop my share for a moment. That was a lot. I hope you're all still with me. And we're going to do a brief survey. And again, these surveys are what helps us with our final report and come to agreement as to what we think would be a good direction for West Virginia to take in next steps and securing funding for programs. So I have a brief set of questions that I'm going to share here. And I will read through them, but please work at your own pace and feel free to ignore me. So 6 questions, and most of them fall in the strongly agree to strongly disagree range. So number 1, there are agencies in the country that are modeling best practices that help individuals with disabilities enter and complete higher education. So what do you think? Do you strongly agree that across the country, there are places that are doing this right that we can model after? And if you don't know, no hard feelings, just choose that you don't know.
I'm having trouble getting to my survey. I'm doing this.
Can anyone see the survey?
I see it, Mandy.
Okay, so and it might be if you're on a phone.
Yes,
if you're on
I
a
can.
phone, you might have trouble.
Yeah, I'm on the phone.
Okay. And I'm not sure how that works. So you can respond in the chat if you'd like. I see people are going through the questions, so I'm going to keep reading them. So that first one was, there are agencies in the country modeling best practices that help individuals complete higher education. Is it happening across the country? The second question is, I'm sorry, for anybody who's not able to get the surveys, I apologize. Just hang tight with us and we'll get as many responses as we can. So if you're on the phone, you just get to take a break and listen and reflect right now.
Oh, good. Okay.
There are agencies in West Virginia that are modeling best practices. So the first question was, are there places doing it across the country? The second question is, are there places doing it across West Virginia? What do you think? Strongly agree, yes, it's happening, the whole way down to strongly disagree, no, I don't think it's happening. Or if you don't know, that's okay. We need to increase our outreach in that regard. Number 3, what do you think? A degree is necessary for an individual to find meaningful employment. Do you think that's something you strongly agree with, or something you strongly disagree with, or somewhere in the middle? Number 4, there are currently many opportunities for individuals with disabilities to engage in higher education. And I'm sorry, I did mean in West Virginia, but we can do that generally too. Do you think there are currently opportunities for individuals with disabilities to engage in higher education? Number 5, agencies have what they need to support individuals with disabilities in completing higher education. Do they have what they need to support their clients? And the last one is helping us determine if we think funding should go in this direction. Funding agencies should focus on supporting and enhancing higher education opportunities for individuals with disabilities. What do you think? Should West Virginia be putting their dollars towards increasing higher education opportunities? And I see a lot of you have answered, and I really appreciate it. I apologize for the folks that aren't able to see that. But we're getting a lot of information, and I hope that you're getting some value from the conversation as well.
Absolutely, yes.
I'll leave that up for about 20 more seconds. And tell me if you need more time. I don't mean to rush you. And we're moving into vocational education next. Really good participation numbers on the survey. I really appreciate it. This is going to help me a great deal in preparing a report. I'll go ahead and share the results. And again, I will put together a report to share with this group and the rest of our group that participated since February. So we do feel like there are places across the country, looks like yes and somewhat, mostly agree. We're a little somewhat as far as West Virginia. So that means there's a lot of other places across the country that we can model after and build this strongly agree across West Virginia and make more opportunities available. We disagree that a degree is necessary, and I agree with that. And we do have a range there, but a lot of valuable work experiences and placements can be gained without a degree. But if that's your desire, we want you to have the access and ability to do that. And you'll see some similar questions across vocational education. Spoiler alert. There are currently many opportunities for individuals with disabilities to engage in higher education. So we're kind of along the mid there, but I know that we can increase this strongly agree opinion. And so that's what these conversations are helping us move towards. And we don't have what we need. Agencies have what they need to support individuals. We are heavy on the somewhat disagree there. So we're working on it. We're just not completely there. Or is that the strongly? I can't see all my bars here. There we go. Funding agencies should focus on supporting and enhancing higher education opportunities for individuals with disabilities. Okay, we have some real heavy on the yes there, and we'll see if we get similar answers as it relates to vocational education. So thank you all for participating in that. I gave your eyes a little break from those slides, and I'm going to go right back into it. All right. So we're going to briefly go through our vocational presentations and then have a similar survey about those topics. So now you guys have a feel for what we're doing here now. And our first speaker, I believe she's here with us today, is Miss Debbie Hopkins, and she's been a great participant in our communities of practice. And that's our hope is, that you all will recognize each other's names moving forward and want to partner with each other. And if you're working on a grant that is focused on apprenticeships, there's Debbie. She says, hi, everyone. If you're working on a grant or funding opportunity that has to do with apprenticeships, I encourage you to get a hold of Debbie. As you can see here from her little kind of bio and background that I put together. She was part of an apprenticeship program in Virginia that was very successful. And she's continuing that work with apprenticeships now. And if you guys have been on the listserv since, I guess this was May when Debbie came to talk to us, I've shared some newsletters and other publications about apprenticeships. I get really excited. I think this is one of our topics and one of our focus areas that West Virginia really needs to accelerate. And we highlighted some things that are going on in West Virginia already surrounding apprenticeships in our next couple of slides. But if we partner with people like Debbie and the work that she's been doing and other best practiced modeled apprenticeship programs across the state, I think we can, across the country, I think that we could be the best. We could be the best in the country when it comes to apprenticeships. And some things that I'm going to focus on as we go through, but maybe we don't all know what apprenticeships are. And that's part of breaking down that barrier. So a lot of notes from Debbie's presentation. We talked a lot about co-enrollment, dual enrollment, multi-enrollment, whatever, braiding funds, using money from DRS, using money from workforce to help people move forward as it relates to their career interests. Using DOL funding, using incentives that employers have. And that comes with one of our other notes there that we took away was to always get creative and think outside the box in developing opportunities. We'll hear from several of our presentations in the next several slides that we need to meet employers where they have the needs and make them really an important customer in our process. Deb talked about the importance of boot camps, career boot camps, soft skills boot camps, getting people ready to go to work. Because once we get that job, yay, we're successful. Well, we have to know how to keep that job. And so boot camps have been really popular as far as getting people ready in that soft skill and ready to go to work. And we really wanted to take away from Debbie's presentation that any job with a training plan can be an apprenticeship. You find me a job that doesn't have any training associated with it, and I'd be super surprised. So we want to get away from thinking about bricklayers and pipe fitters when we think about apprenticeships. We want to think about pharmacy tech, culinary arts, anything that has training associated with it can be developed into an apprenticeship. And I love Debbie's interest in spending all the money that's available across the state, all those different pockets. If they don't spend it, they have to give it back. And then the assumption is we didn't need it to begin with. So braid that funding, access your workforce, access your rehab services, and see what they're able to support with. And then knowing what your special programs are, like being able to write a pass plan if you're on SS, if you're on Social Security, to put money aside to save for a car or pay for oil changes or buy tires, knowing what those kind of backdoor special programs are and how to access them. I love our list of champions every month. We had a lot this month. And again, we're shifting our focus to vocational. So we're talking about apprenticeships, vocational education, certificates, all that good stuff. So we talked about West Virginia Women Work, their statewide program, providing apprenticeships specifically to women as it relates to construction. Job Corps is it's available here in West Virginia and all surrounding states. It's where you go. It's residential vocational education. Voc Rehab and Employment for Veterans. Oh, SRC. I don't know. Does anyone know what that stands for? Should I know? Center for Independent Living, Job Squad. A lot of people we've had involved in our conversations here over the last year. JCDC out of Parkersburg area, PACE, Goodwill, particularly the Southern region, is active. Thank you, Gina. SRC Statewide Rehabilitation Council. Okay, thank you. So they were mentioned as a champion. Schools with career pathway tracks, so specific vocational pathways within the high schools that you can choose, like maybe you're choosing automotive or culinary, and you're starting those conversations early. Mount Laurel, I'm not familiar with. Someone mentioned them as a champion. And then we talked about Buzz Foods a lot when it came to apprenticeships, because at this point, if you're running a successful apprenticeship in West Virginia, people are going to notice you because it's not very common. And so Buzz Foods has a meat cutting apprenticeship in Charleston that I've heard mentioned in several different areas. And so I think they might be someone to look at within the state as a best practice. What are our needs? Well, we need increased exposure. What are the labor and trades? We need increased training, apprenticeships, access to unions, reaching underserved groups such as minority, female, and disability. So like our West Virginia Women program, West Virginia Women Work, there was a need to have atypical, women aren't going into the construction field as often, so that need was recognized, and the West Virginia Women program was implemented to help bring those women into the industry because they're very successful and are able to retain those jobs for a long time. And so you see that need, you build a program based on it. And that's what we're hoping to do out of these conversations. There seem to be pockets of activities, like I mentioned, Buzz Foods, if they're good at this, why can't we do it elsewhere? So how do we expand those pockets of activity to areas where there's less representation? And then the fear of accommodations, lack of knowledge, lack of services. These are all needs that we've recognized across the state. Also, a lot of outreach. We must have been busy this month. A lot of outreach methods mentioned in the month of May. We looked at unique ways to reach those underserved pockets, having early and consistent information, having resource fairs, early intervention, we've heard that a lot, start early, making the whole team part of the conversation, sharing success stories, building hope for families through peer mentoring and sharing stories, and having an entire campaign needing implemented using social media. And so maybe that would be something that the state or the Board of Education would put out is, a career exploration campaign that the entire state works towards. This was probably me again, past programs, disability program navigators, I miss them. Training centers, specifically the training center in Institute that DRS used to have, and probably around 2000, I don't know, maybe 2014 or 15, there was a statewide OJT program put out through Workforce West Virginia that wrote contracts all over the state with employers and put people to work. What's out there for employers? Business service teams. We also already mentioned the work opportunity tax credit earlier, so that's one that we're seeing a common theme. Workforce West Virginia, we've seen that mentioned earlier. And what can we ask employers to do to enhance the experience? We can ask them to think beyond the typical trades and participate. So CVS can do an apprenticeship for a pharmacy tech. Kroger can do an apprenticeship for a bakery associate. So approaching those employers and finding an employer that's willing to go through the process. And we do have a contact in West Virginia that helps us through that process that's going to show up here in a couple of slides. So just getting those employers to buy in, that age-old issue. All right. And then our next speaker, we actually had several speakers come and speak to us in, I think we're in the month of June now. And we focused on apprenticeships. Coming out of our conversation with Debbie, we thought, maybe we don't know enough about apprenticeships. And so we wanted to spotlight what we're already doing in West Virginia. So this one takes a little bit of a spin. So far, we've only highlighted presenters from outside of the state. And our next two out of three are actually from West Virginia. So first we had Adam Mouse come and speak with us, and he's from the Office of Apprenticeship and Training with the Department of Labor. So we talk about having that credibility. Well, we have our own DOL representative assigned to us here in West Virginia. And he travels around and meets with employers. And so as agencies, we can reach out to Adam, or as employers, we can, bring people to the table and say, hey, we'd like to develop an apprenticeship. And we have an expert right here in our state that can sit down and talk with us about what that means. And again, not just pipe fitters, bricklayers, electricians, any employment opportunity that has a training plan associated with it. So if you're looking to take notes, apprenticeship.gov is the website that you would want to visit to learn more about getting a hold of Adam and how you can develop. You can start an apprenticeship at your own agency for a clerical, caseworker, whatever you need. Again, in June, we highlighted 3 presenters. So it was back-to-back presentations. So I'm going to just go right through them, and then we have some follow-up notes. We invited Hickam Ghislaine from Youth Build. Thanks, Jen. She put that apprenticeship.gov in the chat if you'd like to grab that. Hickam came and talked to us about a program that we do have here in West Virginia, but I was interested in hearing how they run their Youth Build program out west in New Mexico. So Santa Fe Youth Build, Hickam came to talk to us about how Youth Build runs their model and how, Youth Build is for 16 to 24-year-olds. It's focused on youth, and it's focused typically on construction, although they've added some additional career pathways like food service and healthcare in the last couple of years. But the Youth Build model is really good. It works. Young people are getting jobs. And so I wanted to share these statistics that since 1978, over 180,000 young people have gone through the Youth Build model across 18 countries, and they've done over 50 million hours of service. And this is building homes for those that are needy across the state and providing housing, and also providing community service in their communities. And the way they work is through hands-on learning and gaining certificates, and then supported employment finding placements. And so this model, I think, works really well for all ages, because I think a lot of people, when they reflect on the learning style, they report that hands-on is the best, and we can hear about work forever, or we can do work. And I think the Youth Build model provides that opportunity to do, and it gives students the confidence, or those in transition, the confidence to be successful in their next job endeavor. And I should mention that across West Virginia, there's been several youth builds. There's been one in Fairmont for 18 years that shut down in the 2000s, like 2012 maybe. And now there's one in Charleston. There's been one in Beckley for a long time, and in Elkins. And some of those funding streams are changing. And so I'm concerned that Youth Build is going to be less available. And so this is something that I'd really like to preserve, the way they're putting people to work. And Debbie put something helpful in the chat. And these are some, like, I've been sending you guys newsletters and resources, the fact sheets that they put out. And this one is specific to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They put out some really nice materials that the federal government is pushing for these experiences to be expanded and these opportunities to be made more widely available. So make sure you use those resources. We talk about using things with credibility. So if you can make those infographics available on your website and be showing individuals and employers that it can be a successful situation, that's never going to hurt. Finally, in June, we heard from another successful agency in West Virginia, RCBI. The Robert C. Byrd Institute, and that is housed at Marshall University. And you see here, Miss Lucinda Curry is the director of their Apprenticeship Works program, and her contact information is there. She knows everything. I'd like to get Debbie and Lucinda together in a room to work on apprenticeships for West Virginia. And so if you see here, they have programs, and if you go to their website, you can see the different apprenticeship programs, but they're breaking down those barriers of the typical professions and industries represented in apprenticeships. And they're using nationally recognized best practices to develop those. And I'm seeing a couple of notes here. I'll catch up with those in just a second. Can't multitask that well. So I appreciate your comments and keep them coming. So Lucinda came and talked to us about the apprenticeships that have been developed here in West Virginia, and we've already got it. It's successful. So we can show those successes within our own state, along with the data that is shown federally that apprenticeships work. And I really like the statement here at the bottom. Through an apprenticeship program, employees learn your way of doing things at your facility. So you can sell job seekers, this person's ready to work, but in an apprenticeship situation, it's more on the job where they're learning. And so an employer is really able to mold what they want out of that employee. So I think apprenticeships are really desirable. And if we can just break that barrier of those traditional industries that are represented, I think we can really run with it here in West Virginia. That's my last, okay, just our quick wrap up, and then that's it. We're going to do our vocational survey, and then we have just a couple more slides. So again, we had a lot of topics. There was less time for discussion in this month, but what we really did focus on, that focused apprenticeships are leading to employment. It's working. Youth build models provide that soft skills development that sometimes is lost. And it's not just individuals with disabilities. It's not just the population that we're talking about that we see this. Younger people aren't having, they're just not having those skills developed when they get to the work site or when they get to college. And so focusing on those soft skills through boot camps and other activities is really going to help our individuals keep their jobs. And then use ADAM to build relationships. Look at the RCBI model. It's already working in West Virginia, so make it work for you. Our champions were, of course, the youth build programs that I mentioned, and some of their funding has come and gone, unfortunately. Focusing on existing apprenticeships like the BuzzFoods one and the other ones that Lucinda and her team have developed to show employers, hey, we're doing it down in Kanawha County. Why don't we do it in Cabell County? Look how successful this has been. And again, our schools with vocational career pathways built into their curriculum. I think it's Tri-County down in the Elkins area. They've got some really strong career pathways. And I know there's other schools across the state that have that built in, even from 9th grade, to choose that career pathway and focus on those certificate options. What are our needs? I've said it a million times. We need more job titles represented within apprenticeships. We need more employer buy-in. I'm hearing that a lot. More educator buy-in, more success stories, peer-to-peer mentoring, and more tryouts in high school and even middle school to find out what we enjoy. What kind of outreach works the best? Peers. I think we need to listen to that. We've heard that enough times. The buy-in from the supportive partners, success stories, and testimonials specifically from employers. And what do employers need? They need to provide access to apprenticeships, and how do we make that approach? And especially when it comes to agreements and contracts, from a job shadow to an internship. Have you all ever heard, I'm gonna need my lawyer to take a look at that? And you're like, whoops, all right, I gotta keep moving. Because a lot of times it gets hung up in that paperwork, and the opportunity never comes to fruition. So how can we make sure we're providing protections, liabilities, and making it as least intensive as possible so that people want to participate. Okay. Whew. Any comments or questions? If not, we're gonna do another survey. You guys are all still here. Awesome. Thank you. All right. I believe this has a couple more questions than the first one, but it's all good information that's going to help us make a plan. So I'll go ahead and launch that survey. If you're unable to see the surveys, please listen to the questions and reflect, or take yourself a little break. Okay, number one, similar, like I said, a lot of similar sounding questions. Are there agencies in the country modeling best practices that are helping individuals complete vocational education? And when I talk about vocational education, I'm referring to apprenticeships, certificates, labor trades, on-the-job training, anything you can think of that's out of high school but not college. So do you believe that across the country, there are places modeling best practices? Strong down to strongly disagree. The second question, same question, but focused on West Virginia. There are agencies in West Virginia modeling best practices that help individuals enter and complete vocational education programs. Do you strongly agree, somewhat agree, you don't know, or you somewhat or strongly disagree? And if we see lots of I don't knows, then we know we really need to push for this so that we can have more awareness. Number three, this will look familiar. A certificate or training is necessary for an individual to find meaningful employment. Strongly agree down to strongly disagree. A certificate is necessary for an individual to find meaningful employment. Number four, there are currently many opportunities for individuals with disabilities to engage in vocational education. Number five, agencies have what they need to support individuals with disabilities in completing vocational education programs. And then the last couple of questions are specific to apprenticeship models. I understand what an apprenticeship model looks like, and it's all right if you don't. We just need to know where to start. Number seven, as an agency, employer, or individual, I would participate in an apprenticeship opportunity, meaning I would hire someone, I would train someone, or I'd be someone that's interested in that. How interested, how much would you engage in apprenticeships if they were available in our region? And then the next one is a choose all that apply. I think these industries would be a great place to expand apprenticeships. Or if you think of an industry that I don't have listed there, go ahead and share it in the chat. I only get so many responses I can add to the poll. So if there's anything you think is really overlooked there, please add it to the chat. And number 9, same as our first group of questions, funding agencies should focus on supporting and enhancing vocational education opportunities for individuals with disabilities. The last one was enhancing higher education. Now I want to know if we should put money towards enhancing vocational education opportunities. And now I'll be quiet for a moment so you all can finish up. Oh, good. Thank you, Tina. Education system added to future apprenticeship opportunities. And there's, I mean, my gosh, think of all the job titles along with teacher's aide, but the different positions within the school system that could all. Thank you for that. We'll give it about 30 more seconds. Holler if you need more time. And I promise the last survey is only 4 questions. Oh, there is a child development apprenticeship. Fantastic, Jeanette. All right, we need to look that up. Do you know, Jeanette, is that, or there used to be, the submit button faded. I don't know why that would be, Debbie. And then they're anonymous, so I don't know if I got, if it's faded, I would guess that you did submit it, and that's why you're not able to again, Debbie. So let's have faith in the polling system. It was still open. I'll guess I got your answer. I'm going to go ahead and end it and share the results. And we'll just run down them real quick. Okay, so we feel good that there are models to look at throughout the state. Fairly even for within West Virginia. I'd say a little stronger across the country. So we can find some best practices across the country that can help enhance these numbers. We feel a little stronger that certificate is training. I think we were heavier on the disagree when it came to college education than we were here. And we'll be able to see that a little better when I send out the reports. I'll try to make it visually easy to compare. There are currently many opportunities for vocational education. We'd like to see some heavier responses up here that we can strongly agree that there's a lot of stuff out there for us to access. Agencies have what they need. We got to work on that. But that's all right. We're identifying what we need to work on. Do we feel confident about apprenticeships? Pretty confident. All right, good. So we know what we would like to go after there as far as what an apprenticeship looks like. And we're all willing to engage in it. That's that practice what you preach. We can't be going around talking about how awesome apprenticeships are and not be willing to participate in one ourselves in some regard. So that's great to see. And all right, we like all these industries. Cool. Basically, we want everybody to participate. I love that. And we would like to see money put in that direction. I agree. Good. Thank you. Woo. All right, and let me check my chat here. And we have a couple of slides left and we're almost out of time. So we're trucking right along. So I'm gonna need to look up the Child Development Specialist Apprenticeship. And that's part of being more aware of what's available and whether that's statewide or specific to a region. So thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna go back to my PowerPoint. Couple more highlights to do, and then 4 final questions, and then the rest of your day is ahead of you. All right, so our last 2 topics were preparing employers and preparing employees. And I'm just gonna go right through these slides and highlight what our presenters talked about. Transcend came to talk about preparing employers, and specifically Mr. Dale Verstegen, who's a senior research associate with the group. And he's the one that came and talked to us about Department of Labor findings and outcomes across the country as it relates to individuals with disabilities securing employment. And he had some really cool testimonials from employers saying why they hire people with disabilities and why it works for them, and why they will continue to do it. So when we talk about testimonials and things like that, there's experts out there that have the data that we want to share. And it's just a matter of connecting with those people. They told us it's so important to use a good tracking tool when we're talking about customized employment and approaching employers. To always listen to our employers and look at what the labor needs are in the area. Don't be telling everybody to go become an underground welder if you live at underwater welder if you live in the desert. Be realistic about job goals. Make sure you're providing services to client, families, and employers alike. We have a lot of customers. Using services that are available like WIPA for benefits management, WIVATS for assistive technology, ticket to work services, ABLE for financial security, that kind of thing. Again, we had some similar champions, WOTC, that work opportunity tax credit, apprenticeships, WIOA, workforce, getting your GED and task. And we stated that there was a need for more employer education, which I think we've seen a common theme. Follow up state policies, which is what we're working on. A cultural mindset shift, and education on litigation. People are always afraid they're going to get sued for something. What's the best way to do outreach? get out there in the streets, meet your employers, cater to everything that they need, make them your priority in the conversation. We mentioned some, no, honestly, I think that got copied over. We'll ignore that. So that was from another slide. And offering paid internships, I think that might have been from another slide too. So sorry about that. Next month, we had Dina Kim Klina from the Council of State Governments and the Cape Youth Program. She also talked to us about federal data. So having that backup, that employer testimonials and numbers that show this works. Hiring individuals with disabilities will benefit your place of employment. And here are the numbers to prove it. One of the statements that really resonated with us from Ms. Klimklina was nothing without us about us. Nothing about us without us, excuse me. And that's why it's so important to us to have employers, agencies, and individuals with disabilities alike part of this conversation, because you're all very important pieces to it. A publication that you all may want to check out is the Guideposts for Success. I've been using that book for, I don't know, 15 years. I didn't know it was from the Council of State Government. So if you're an agency or an individual, you might want to check out the Guideposts for Success publication. Some of our champions were Job Squad, who I think we have represented here on the call today, Youth Build, who we've highlighted, and the Disability Action Center in Fairmont. Things we're lacking are employer awareness, transportation, family support, and connections, that communication piece. And what's out there to support employers? Again, the WVU, the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, Job Accommodation Network, EARN, providing data to show employers that hiring individuals with disabilities is beneficial, that sort of thing. All right, we're in the home stretch. 2 more presentations. Ms. Lisa Jordan came and talked to us about Human Solutions LLC. She's a ticket to work agency. We don't have many of them in West Virginia, but we do have some of them. They are for individuals that receive Social Security benefits, SSI, CDB, SSDI, and they assist in going back to work and supporting the application from resume to job placement, whatever you need support with. Really, I listed her certifications not to brag about her, but to show everyone how important certifications and continuing education and affiliations are to staying progressive and staying hip in an ever-changing world. And so things like the SOAR, the Stepping Stones to Recovery Trainer, some specific trainings that have come out, the NAWDP, National Association of Workforce Development Professionals. So this is just to show our professionals and our agencies that we can always be gaining knowledge and information by increasing our affiliations and our professional certifications to help the clients that we serve. I'm going to go through these last ones so fast. We talked about customizing of services being so important when it comes to serving employees, having those individualized services like getting the assistive technology you need, knowing how to manage your cash and medical benefits. We talked about the champions. These are people that we see, the focus we had on that conversation is who's out there hiring individuals with disabilities, who are our friendly employers. And we talked about food service being an industry that's easy to get your foot in the door and have chance for advancement. Again, any entry level position, you got to start somewhere. The entertainment industry, museums, hospitals, Schedule A government positions and knowing how to access those. Campgrounds were mentioned as nice entry-level positions, and then accessing the services and supports that go along with successful retention of employment, such as Job Accommodation Network, Rehab Services, Workforce WIOA, Disability Rights of West Virginia, and a variety of others that are out there and available. Needs are just dispelling fears a lot of times, just making people more aware of what's available and make it possible. How do we like to provide outreach? Again, we're hearing peers again. How many times have we heard peers? I think people want to hear from their peers. And that might have been me, Disability Program Navigators. Last presentation was Dr. David Wittenberg from the Mathematica Policy Research Group. And I hope you guys take note of these presenters because they're all very friendly and they want to hear from you. If you're working on a project, they want to know, they want to be a part of it. So Dr. David Wittenberg specifically said, give me a ring if you want to talk about research or hiring individuals with disabilities. And these are all his focus areas: health, disability, economic well-being, statistics, transition to adulthood, health information technology, and human services. And he's been in the business for a while, and he's very well-versed on data and research as it relates to the benefits of hiring individuals of all ages with disabilities. I think I left those notes in there by accident. We want to find, well, that's fine because I'm running out of time here. So I'm going to skip this slide. And we're up for another survey. I'm going to stop the share. Clock is ticking, ladies and gentlemen. This is a 4-question quick survey, and this one doesn't have to do with specific higher education, vocational education, preparing to go to work. It's just your thoughts on next steps as it relates to securing funding and moving forward in the state of West Virginia and looking at what we think will provide the best results and outcomes. So last poll, and again, I'll read through them. If you aren't able to see them, take a little break. Okay, and these are mostly multiple choice because I want to gauge how interested people are in the different methods. So number 1, choose the best way to disseminate information about transition opportunities. And if you have something that's not listed there, such as we did in the last one, please put it in the chat. So do you think the best way for outreach is through resource fairs? Is it brochures and flyers? Is it peer mentors, family events, in-school meetings, recorded videos, live interactive webinars or open houses, or through guidance counselors and IEP meetings? And again, if there's something I haven't listed there, I only have so many spaces, drop it in the chat if we've missed something big. And I saw some questions in the chat. I'll pop over there in just a moment. Number 2, as a person interested in this topic, you're here, you're part of this conversation. What activity do you feel would have the greatest impact on the state if we continue to focus on expanding opportunities and policies? And again, use the chat if you'd like to add additional ones. But do you think a certificate program housed at a college should be the focus, a 4-year degree program, post-secondary vocational training, apprenticeship opportunities, direct placements with or without supports, pre-apprenticeships that address soft skills, community and tech school certificate programs, or career boot camps, or anything else that I didn't list? Number 3, what soft skills or resources need to be a strong focus moving forward in transition planning of all ages? If it's not listed there, add it in the chat for me. But what are people lacking when they get to work? I finally got this job and now I'm freaking out because I don't know how to report my income, or I don't know how to pack my lunch. I don't even know how to start looking for a job. Where are the greatest gaps that you're seeing, whether it's yourself, someone, your child or family member, or within an agency or employment? What do you see? What are we missing? And finally, number 4, oh, and I didn't mean to make that single choice. Oh, well, we got to work with it. What services and supports do you feel are being best utilized across the state as it relates to finding meaningful employment? And I tried to list our champions that we saw throughout the different months. And I guess for that one, you only get to choose one. That's my mistake. Those are our 4 questions for our final poll. I'll give you a minute here to respond to those. Check out the chat. Yeah, Dr. Whitberg was very open. He said, if you guys want to talk about a funding opportunity, to just give him a call. He was very amenable. So I'll see if I can, he's with Mathematica, like Jen said, and we can just drop his contact page in there. And so if you're writing a grant that has a research element to it, places like Mathematica might be somewhere that you reach out to for support in developing that research piece. If you're looking for technical assistance, somewhere like Dr. Griggle from Think College or Dale Verstegen from Transcend, these are national experts that their job is to link with agencies out in the community and across the country to help implement Department of Labor and federal policies and help build that up so that we have successful programs across the country, not just so that we just have programs. It takes a little more than just existing. We got to do good with what we're doing. So it looks like I've got the majority of you responded. I will share these results and then we'll wrap it up for the day. So we looks like live interactive webinars and open houses were our favorite option for dissemination. Let's see, apprenticeships. All right. Yeah, apprenticeships, it came through really strong that this is something that works across the country, and it's something that we've got the tip of the iceberg here in West Virginia, and then we can just keep running with it. But we had a lot of really strong opinions there. Soft skills, what are we missing? Those communication skills. Yeah, in my country roads class, I've tasked my students with finding me one job, any job title that doesn't require communication. And they've been trying for about 6 months now. They haven't come up with one. So it's not surprising to me that that was our strongest need. And DRS, yeah, we saw them. There are champions. So how can we build up these other programs that are available across the state and get that out? I saw someone mention like Job Corps, why we didn't see that mentioned more often. And I think it's an outreach and awareness. So I'm glad to see you say that, Dorothy. And I think we just need, maybe it's regional, places that are closer to a Job Corps are more familiar with what's available. But we've had some presenters say that those residential programs are really the best because you're taken out of your regular setting and you get to succeed and learn those independent living skills. And going back to that earlier, yeah, that start early, we saw that a lot. So with all that being said, you guys have been a fantastic group. It doesn't do me any good if I'm talking and you guys aren't participating. So I really appreciate all your engagement in the surveys. I will be putting a report together. We had great attendance today. Again, you guys are all eligible for a $50 stipend for your participation today. And I appreciate you all putting the time in. I'm hoping that my registration reports get me everything I need. I took a screenshot here too, so that I can cross-reference because obviously we didn't have all 96 people attend today. But hopefully the rest of our group will go back and watch the video. I'll hope to have it up in the next week and a half once I'm able to fix the subtitles. And so thank you all so much for being part of this group. I'll keep you all connected in the future. Appreciate you. Stick around if you have any comments.
I have a quick
I'll be here. Yeah.
I have a quick question.